this thing that you had, Darnell, pulmonary implosion. Did I say it right?
Embolism. Yeah.
It could turn into a heart attack. Is that correct? Or even cause a stroke. Those things, it's not on our bucket list, right? Those things are not on our calendars to ever have those things. I mean, especially, those things that we just described that happened to Darnell. I mean, I'll even go, you said 18 blood clots?
18.
I'll bring it down to half. 9 blood clots. That happens to somebody that's older, right? Maybe somebody that's
You would
not.
think.
You would think,
That's
right?
what they say.
Darnell, you're under 40, right?
Yes.
39 to be
39.
exact. You're right there at that almost 40. It just doesn't happen to. We're not thinking it's going to happen to people our age.
Right.
But God had other plans, right? If He brings
Thank
you to it, He'll
goodness.
bring you through it. Thank goodness for that.
Absolutely.
And that's what I try to get a hold, and I try to communicate to folks that we don't know if something could ever happen, right?
Tomorrow's not promised.
It never is Alicia. We hope it's going to be a nice sunny day. It's what the weather calls for. But, let's face it, that's one job, being a weather forecaster, I've never seen anybody get fired for. Predicting the weather wrong. It just, I've never seen a weatherman or weatherwoman get fired for predicting the weather's wrong. Not yet. But life can deal with us, different obstacles from one day to the next. And with that in mind, one of the products that I talk a lot about that I have is the living benefits that I have with Transamerica. And, it's not something that can cure cancer, that can cure a heart attack or a stroke or a lot of illnesses. But it's something that I have found that a lot of people like to have as a shock absorber. That if it did happen to somebody our age, younger, even older, if they've got something like that in place, if somebody had that could protect their family financially, do you think something like that would be beneficial to people?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Look, that was the one thing that I will say, like, looking back, we even had a conversation, like, coming home from the hospital, and I even looked over it and told him, I was just like, it wasn't fun preparing for your death, but if something was to happen, like, we were good, we were prepared, and we had things in place to help with that, and like that we would have been okay, and I think that as him being the head of our home, like that's something that he probably honestly takes peace in knowing that we have that in place, and you're right, having a policy like that it can mean, financial life or death.
What do you say to the folks out there, Alicia? The folks that are out there that, again, they're our age, right? They're our age. I just turned 49 back on Sunday. I'm 49 years young, and it was the age I've always wanted to be. Hopefully next year I'm going to see 50. But as we talked about, it's not guaranteed. But for folks our age and younger, folks in general that think that, you know what, by the way, that was a touching story. It was emotional, and it was real. That's what I like about it. For the folks out there that think that, it's a terrible thing that happened, but it'll probably happen to somebody down the street. Maybe somebody I know. The bullseye will never be on me. What would you say to those folks that could be thinking that may be putting something off like life insurance or getting a good policy that will be there for them? What would be your advice to them folks today that could be thinking that?
Well, usually if you think that it's not going to be you, then you might want to start preparing, because it usually is. Because that's the number one thing that everyone says is, I didn't think that this could happen to me. We see people day in and day out. In fact, actually, we just had a friend that passed that was, our age, that never would have thought that was to happen to them or to their family. And I think that's one of the things is just like, you have to prepare. You have to think like that. You have to, make sure that your loved ones are going to be taken care of. And is it financially a burden? Sometimes, yes. It is, but it's also a risk that, you're willing to take, or if you're willing to take that risk, then you are risking the consequence of not having it. So I know for me, the whole time I was by his side in the hospital, the last thing I wanted to think about was a bill. The last thing that I wanted to think about was, are we going to be able to make our mortgage or, something to that extent. I mean, let's be honest, we're both small business owners that, if we're not working, then we're not earning. So had it not been for what we had prepared, then I couldn't have fully been present for everything that was going on, whether that be the last moments of his life or a pivot point in his life, to witness the greatness of a miracle that God literally bestowed upon both of us. So
well put.
Yeah. The way I think about it is, death is certain, obviously. How death shows up is uncertain. So I would never want to take a chance that I'm not prepared for when and how it's going to show up. So we all know somebody, a friend, family member who has died early, suddenly from this unknown thing. So why we think that we'll never be that friend or that family member that could experience that is crazy to me. So it's just smart. I think if something happened to me, I definitely want my people to be taken care of. So I'm going to do everything in my power to put things in motion that will ensure that that's going to happen.